Okay,
I
well,
don't want to
actually,
talk about the show.
wait. Let's talk about that because this is because aside from so full story, Netflix has been testing out some live events. Like you got the Mulaney talk show during Netflix is a Joke
You
Festival.
have David Chang's cooking show.
David Chang's cooking show. You have the Kobayashi versus Joey Chestnut hot dog competition. That was a big thing. It got
We had the
Kobayashi out of retirement.
Formula One golfing match
yeah.
play thing for some reason.
I don't know why they did that. But now that has
got to find something for Tom Segura to do. I don't know.
Now it has moved on from an insane influencer, Jake Paul, trying to go fight a 60-year-old man. And yeah, so now it's Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson has been doing a series of interviews where it sounds like he wants to kill Jake Paul. I think a lot of this feels like wrestling to me. But also this is leading up to Netflix buying the rights to Monday Night Raw. That is going to happen. That's going to be on Netflix now. And these are basically like test audiences for it.
Rich, you really did bury the lead, though, when you said Jake Paul fights 60-year-old man, because that also feels like a Paul Brothers video from 2014.
Yeah, this is the rematch.
I mean, the entire thing is just sort of weird, right? Because there was a time where the CEO of Netflix was like, we're never going to do live sports. We just don't have the capability of doing so. And now they're just like
no more sharing passwords.
Well, technically this isn't live sports, even though you can bet on it. Like it's in DraftKings, it's in FanDuel, which is terrifying. And like, I mean, sure, if you guys have nothing to do on a Friday night, this will be coming out after the fight. So let us know in the comments how it turned out.
All we wanted was the final season of Glow. All we asked for was the final season of Glow.
That's true.
Oh my gosh. But Rich, you were talking to us earlier about the Onion and some talk about other investments. The Onion made a big one.
Speaking of insane white people shit that no one should be watching, the Onion just bought InfoWars in a public auction from Alex Jones's lawsuit where he owes $1.5 billion. So he had to essentially like foreclose and auction off InfoWars. And now it is an Onion-owned property where they're bringing back former Onion and Clickhole contributors to rebuild the website, and I could not be more excited about it.
I wonder if this is going to be more successful than Comedy Central's The Opposition with Jordan Klepper. I'm curious how people will respond to satirical takes on InfoWars and hard right media.
That was the Colbert Report. The Colbert Report was that person. However, that's now become like a characterization of itself. It's not Republican politics has gotten so much more crazy since the Colbert Report.
That is now a moderate Democrat.
Yeah.
Hello, passengers, and welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License. With service to Los Angeles and the Blue Moon Detective Agency, we ask that you please fasten your headphones, secure your podcasting device, and remember that while you may get one phone call if you're taken in by the police, this is a TV podcast, and we would prefer you use your phone to listen to your in-flight entertainment.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Geoff Kerbis, joined by Rich Inman and Max Singer. How you boys doing today?
Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday, dear Max and Jeff. Happy birthday to us.
And the culmination of Scorpio season, yes, this episode is coming out on Max and my birthday. Rich, as the only person without a birthday on this day,
that's true.
How are you doing?
This is how I've remained 18 the entire run of our podcast. I'm doing great, and I'm also old enough now, I'm also old enough to remember when flights had individual phones inside the seats, the seat backs that you could use to call people from your seat. I do not know why they ever thought that was a good idea, but here we are.
Could you just imagine if people were allowed to make phone calls on flights these days? Like, I see that as a Spirit Airlines activity. Spirit, you can definitely sponsor us if you have the dollars. Please, please, please.
I have taken a Zoom meeting on a flight before, like one where I wasn't supposed to talk very much, so I was like, this will be fine. And I'm like, this is fine. We can handle this. If we have to put up with like screaming children on a flight, you can't handle like 20 minutes of like a little bit of business chatter. You're fine. Calm down,
yes,
everyone.
FAA, I'd like to report a violation.
Well, boys, this week we are taking it back to the 80s and talking about Moonlighting. But before we do so, and before we get into the year of 1985, Max, do you mind telling folks what this podcast is all about?
Here at TV Pilot's License, we break down
For those of you not watching on YouTube, Max just threw on a pair of sweet 80s shades.
Here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn a little bit more about how these shows came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilot episodes and making us want to watch more, and if we think they made today. Go back and stream our old episodes from wherever you listen to podcasts. Check us out on YouTube and TikTok to see our smiling faces. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard.
Yeah, it's the 80s, baby. Jeff just started smoking the whole podcast.
Oh, my God. Well, Rich, what is your question of the week? Or do you have something a little different this week?
A little different. I mean, it's still a question of the week, but I think we got an in-flight question from Dan over on Instagram, and we just loved his question so much we wanted to put it up top and let me stop doing all the work. So I would love to outsource my job to others. Now, I want to know, or Dan wants to know, really, because this is the overall theme of the show, what type of business would you like to be surprised to learn you own and have to run?
Max, I'm curious. I feel like you have something cooked, and I want to hear what you're running and what you're surprised pleasantly to own.
Well, you're not too far off by using the word cooked in that phrase, Jeff. I would be shocked to learn that I own a fleet of soft-serve ice cream trucks that roam New York City.
Let Max put his mouth on the machine.
I found out that I have a 20% ownership stake in Mr. Softy.
Oh, my God. Rich, what about yourself?
Is there a Mrs. Softy? So, okay, I have to go with a callback to a little movie from 1994 called Little Big League, where a kid inherits the Minnesota Twins. I have to go with running a Major League Baseball team. I think it'd be very fun to know if I was a distant Steinbrenner relative and the entire family explodes during a family reunion, and I have to run the Yankees.
So, I mean, I guess that technically means you don't only just own the Yankees, you sort of own the Tampa Bay Rays right now as well.
Sure.
So, like, hey, that sounds great.
Hey, if you go 15-4 against the team for the regular season, you do own them.
I'm just going to be very simple. Parking garages. It is
Jeff, it's just a legitimate good investment. That's so boring.
It's a great investment, but also think about running a parking garage, right?
Okay.
Join me in this, because have you ever just like watched there's a parking garage I park in a lot. It's the one that's attached to the gym that I work at.
Wait, it's a lot, or you park in there with great frequency?
God damn it.
God. With frequency. And I just love the idea of like sitting in that little booth, you know, maybe I have a TV going, maybe I'm listening to a podcast or reading a good book, but all you're there to do is make sure that nothing too terrible happens. And I think that, hey, parking garages, lots make a ton of money. So like even a 5% ownership stake would be great.
Jeff, you didn't even try to shoot for the moon on this one. This is like a legitimate thing that your parents could like actually own, and they forgot about telling you that they do.
Okay, Rich. Dog walkers. I own a fleet of dog walkers across the
Whoa, you don't own them.
Area.
You don't own them. We're not saying you do not own them.
I own a dog walking business in the Twin Cities.
Jeff's already amongst the stars. Don't need the moon, baby.
Oh my God. Well, Dan, thank you so much for that in-flight question. We'll talk a little bit more at the end of this podcast about how you can submit.
And we're so sorry, Dan, about Jeff's answer.
Oh my God. Well, let's talk a little bit more about Moonlighting. Before folks go and embark on watching this show, I feel like a word of warning from me. Yes, you're going to go on Hulu. You're going to look up Moonlighting, and you're going to see it's an hour and 32 minutes long. But for the sake of brevity, we are only going to be talking about the first 43 minutes and 12 seconds.
I think we should have. I think what we should have done for this episode is just pretend like we were going to do the full 93 minutes or whatever, and then just cut it off.
But you can definitely find this on Hulu. But yeah, let's talk a little bit more about the synopsis of this show. An ex-model and a smart aleck detective manage a private detective agency. That's it. It is less than, or basically barely, a sentence. But Max, how did this show get made?
First off, I want to say I watched this on Disney Plus because it was an ABC show and it's on there now, which is really funny to me. But they don't order the seasons in order on Disney Plus. So when you hit Start Moonlight, it probably played
season 5.
It probably played season 5, episode 1, but it took me about 10 minutes to realize I was watching the premiere of season 5. But let me tell you, episode 1 of season 5, it has fourth wall breaks. It has a musical number.
What?
It has Booger from Revenge of the Nerds in a very major role. None of those things were in today's pilot. It's still valid. Today, we are talking about the pilot episode of Moonlighting, which aired on March 3rd, 1985 on ABC. We're talking about the show's creator a little bit more, Glenn Gordon Caron. In the late 1970s, Glenn Gordon Caron studied with Del Close in Second City while working in an advertising agency. When he was presented the opportunity to write a pilot for NBC, because it was the late 70s, that's just how TV worked. His shows that get picked up to film a pilot episode, but his writing impresses James L. Brooks, again, because this is how TV worked, who invites Gordon Caron to join the staff at Taxi, where he's a credited writer on an episode in season 2. He subsequently works as a writer on the NBC sitcom Good Time Harry and ABC's TV adaptation of Breaking Away. His first big project came in 1982 when he's brought on as a writer and supervising producer for NBC's detective drama Remington Steele, starring Pierce Brosnan. NBC is the king of the sexy 80s detective dramedy with Remington Steele, Miami Vice, and Knight Rider, all in its primetime lineup, and ABC wants it on that sweet, sweet action. So they hire Gordon Caron away from Remington Steele to create a pilot for the network. To differentiate it from other shows at the time, the goal was to make a show where the cases wouldn't be front and center. The pilot would instead lay the groundwork for a 1940s screwball comedy and love story between its two leads, deeply inspired by His Girl Friday. While writing the pilot, he knew he wanted Cybill Shepherd for the lead of Maddie Hayes. Shepherd, a Golden Globe nominee and star of films of the 70s, including The Last Picture Show, The Heartbreak Kid, Daisy Miller, and Taxi Driver, had left Hollywood and was working in regional theater, only having recently returned to LA. After sending her the first half of the script, the two take a meeting where Shepherd tells him, if the second half of the script is as good as the first, I'm interested in doing it. That's a good rule.
We'll never find out.
Finding Shepherd's co-star, Detective David Addison, proved more difficult. Gordon Caron offered the role to Bill Murray, fresh off of Ghostbusters, but he couldn't commit to the shooting schedule. God. This launched a search featuring over 2,000 actors auditioning for the role.
Whoa.
Among the final 6 in contention was a bartender with just one TV credit to his name, a guest spot on Miami Vice, named Bruce Willis.
Max is going to say all 1,999 other people that also auditioned for the role.
Walter Payton.
Joe Theismann was definitely in there.
There's a chance that these are both in the list of 2,000.
Yeah.
Willis is actually also up for another pilot at ABC this same pilot season called Growing Pains, where he screen tested for the role of Dr. Jason Seaver that went to Alan Thicke. Moonlighting broke the rules and the budget for ABC. Being owned and produced entirely in-house, the network was willing to pay the show's staggering budget of $1.6 million per episode, making it the most expensive show on TV at the time. Scripts ran nearly twice the length of typical one-hour dramas, making a time with their fast pacing and overlapping dialogue. While a typical network drama would feature a 7-day shoot, episodes of Moonlighting would often stretch for 12 to 14 days. In fact, the show never completed a full season order as a result of this.
Wow.
In the style of pilots of the 1970s and 80s, Moonlighting originally did air as a feature-length TV movie, clocking in at 92 minutes. Subsequent network plays, including broadcasts on Lifetime and Bravo, broke the pilot up into 2 episodes. So we'll be breaking down the syndicated Part 1 today, but if you're intrigued by what you hear, we encourage you to check out the full version on both Hulu or Disney+.
Well,
around this time, or actually maybe a little bit before. No, it was definitely before it. I told you guys my dad is an extra in a made-for-TV movie from 1979, right?
Really?
Starring one very, very young and maybe one of his first major roles, a young actor named Denzel Washington. It's a script. What?
Just cut it out. No, that's not real.
No, it's true.
There's no person named Denzel Washington.
There's a George, and that's it.
Yeah, there's only one Washington, and it's the state. No, he's it's a movie called Flesh and Blood. It's a made-for-TV movie, and I can't remember who stars in it. It's like Tom Bergeron or something like that. And yeah, he is an extra in a scene that they filmed in Champaign, Urbana. And
well, speaking of just extras, moonlighting, and podcasts, apparently a frequent extra. He never had any lines, but he's just an extra in a bunch of the office scenes throughout this show. Is young Doug Benson?
What?
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
That's incredible.
So if you decide, how old is Doug Benson?
Doug Benson was born in 1962. I looked this up.
He's only a couple years younger than my dad. That's crazy.
Yes. So if you're listening to TVPL and you also happen to love Doug Loves Movies, watch all of Moonlighting and just look in the background for Doug Benson as someone sitting at a desk in the City of Angels investigations.
That is so tight.
Doug, come on the pod. We can do a recap episode where we talk about all of your times as an extra.
We'll just talk about your episodes of Moonlighting, Doug Benson.
Exactly. We'll break our rule and talk about everything but the pilot.
I'll get Doug with high with her for that episode.
I'll get Doug with high.
Yeah, that was his original podcast name. It's get Doug with high.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's talk a little bit more about this pilot, or this TV movie that's been broken up to be a pilot, because it's such an interesting start that's almost chaotic in nature. It's very 80s as well in everything that we have.
Howdy.
Like, it just, everything starts a little bit fast cut. It doesn't even, at points I was just like, this is even too much for my ADD. But I'm curious for you two what you thought about our chaotic opening to this pilot.
I love the style. I love the stylizing of it. I love that we just get the most 80s looking guy imaginable and we open on a close up of a luxury watch. I like that we immediately cut to an 80s villain with an anarchy jacket and a mohawk who cocks not only a gun, but a Walkman. He cocks them both. I love the close ups on that. Shout out to just goofy looking character actors getting roles. The villain with the mohawk would be such a hot dude now, and we get this kind of like funky looking pockmarked guy instead. We also get the most 80s thing imaginable, a sequence of jogging, so hot in 1985.
Can we just talk about a couple things about our 80s villain that we get right now? So the actor's name is Dennis Stewart, and Max, I'm really surprised you did not bring this up. He was Leo in John Travolta's Grease, the person who drives in the car opposite of John Travolta in the drag race. Yes,
what?
That is correct. But also, here's my big thing. If you're planning on murdering someone for a watch, you want to be a little bit inconspicuous about how you look. I don't know how we could make this man more conspicuous than he currently is, because you're jogging in jeans. Like, that's also a big thing for me. That can't be comfortable. There's so much chafing.
Also, like, I'm sorry, if you commit to a mohawk, you're not working out. You're not going to do it. There's no way on earth you are committing to sweating, because it ruins the mohawk entirely. Why would you do that? But like, okay, so already I'm like super confused at what the show is going to be about. Because like there is for this show being 92 minutes, this pilot episode being 92 minutes, you could have easily made it 44. There's no way on earth that you need all these extremely long like chase scenes. The entire first half of this pilot is like, it's a regular pilot with Bruce Willis playing extremely smarmy, but also this like French Connection style chase scene that like looks, I don't know, it's just very slow at times and like very like unpredictable.
It's interesting you say that, Rich, because it's been a long time since we've done a pilot where I say, wow, you know what I need right now? Some exposition. I need a little bit of I need a little bit of setting the scene to understand what the fuck is happening right now. And this pilot said, what if we waited 15 minutes before we gave you any details about everyone? Because I clocked it. That is how much time it took us before we met Cybill Shepherd's character.
The first two characters we meet, one of them dies and one of them runs away. And then we get what felt like 4 minutes of just images of Cybill Shepherd being panned over while sultry 80s jazz music, penned by Alf Clausen of The Simpsons, is just laid out before us.
I mean, and it's interesting that our introduction to Maddie, right, is very much like we see all of these different photos of her character around her home in this gigantic, very confusing architectural layout mansion that she lives in.
A lot of this house is outside, it appears.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions because there's a lot of like priceless artifacts, I would put it, or like antiques that are just out in the elements.
That's LA, baby.
If you're that rich, I want to know what you do. I want to come up to like the TikTokers and be like, what job do you have and how much money are you worth?
Well, great news on the how much money are you worth part, Geoff, because we get into that.
Explain it. They give you a tax breakdown of her assets.
So let's talk a little bit about our introduction to Maddie Hayes, right? Mm-hmm. We have to assume she's a model of some sort, but the way we find out that she is broke is how can we say this delicately? Somehow very, very problematic in one actor's portrayal of a chef character. And Max, I know that you wrote this note down, so I'm going to let you start us off in talking about Italian-American relations.
Mamma mia.
So we hear the crashing of fine china in Maddie Hayes' home, and we're introduced to her Italian chef who claims that he will no longer, and I quote, worka for free. And that all of Maddie's checks have, and I quote, a bouncy, bouncy, bouncy. This show sets back Italians in Hollywood by decades. This show is so offensive for Italian stereotyping, and this is the first introduction of her relationship with her team. It is absolutely insane. This man is the little ceramic chef that sat in people's kitchens in the 1990s, brought to life. It's a Pinocchio situation for the ceramic doll in kitchens.
The idea that this show came out 13 years after The Godfather brought like all this cool like charisma, Rich,
the Godfather created a lot of Italian stereotypes.
The fact that this show came out 40 years after Mussolini.
Yeah. He kept the trains running on time. It kept stereotypes out of everyone's mouths.
So I do have to mention that we don't only meet this chef going by the name of Andre.
We also meet Jerry Seinfeld's mom.
Yeah, Selma, played by Liz Sheridan. And I know Liz Sheridan's only in this first part of this TV movie for maybe like a minute and a half, but I love Liz Sheridan. And I was just so happy to see her on screen and be like, yep, she's killing the 2 minutes that she has right now, and gives us full context of like, there's a sense of empathy that we get from Selma of like Maddie's fucked, and like that we don't get from Andre. And you're like, okay, Maddie might be a decent human or surround herself with decent human beings, but we also get the understanding of like, hey, Maddie had all this money, but something is wrong.
Right.
And Rich, what were the thoughts you had when Maddie found her accountant's office in the state that it was?
Well, clearly, it is certainly easy in the 1980s to just abscond with people's money. Like, this is like one of the most difficult crimes to actually commit. But the fact that you're like robbing like a rich celebrity, basically, and also like why did okay, this is obviously the entire premise of Moonlighting, but like, how do you just say yes to all these businesses that your money is wrapped up in? It's not like Shaq owning like 50% of the Wingstop locations. These are like you're buying like really like seedy sounding businesses.
Add that to the thing I want to own part of as well. Like that's on the list.
When her lawyer lists off these like 10 to 12 enterprises that Maddie Hayes has investment stakes as, like, you should visit all these properties. All I'm thinking is ABC
You're gonna get stabbed
like,
if you visit all these.
If this show hits, we have 11 spinoffs ready to
Yes,
go.
we do.
Oh yeah,
100%.
Oh yeah,
100%. I was just thinking, this is sort of like Rich's idea of if we made 50 First Dates into a TV show, where it's just...
I want to make it very clear that I said specifically you should not make it into a TV show.
I understand that, but just imagine Maddie Hayes, every episode is her visiting a different business, and it's like Undercover Boss, but it's
and it's anthology style, and the business owner every time is Bruce Willis.
Yes, every time it's Bruce Willis in a different wig. Like that
I know. I don't know if you guys watch this show, but it's basically Roger from American Dad, where he's so many characters at one point in the show that they just like abandon anyone meeting new people, and it's just Roger every time.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Maddie approaching this first business. So she's given advice by her lawyer to basically declare bankruptcy for all of these businesses, or tell them that they are going out of business, giving them 2 weeks notice sort of thing, and telling them that they'll be given pay for a little bit, but she has to go and do it in person. And the first one happens to be this detective agency, the City of Angels Investigations, to which we are introduced to Bruce Willis's character. Do we think that the basketball scene that we are introduced to David with was his monologue that he might have done?
Oh, that he done
in person
for the audition. He was actually the only one out of the full 2,000 actors to actually make that shot into the trash can, and that's how they picked him.
An ABC executive just saw him doing that in a bar and was like, "We found him. That's it. That's our guy."
I have never seen Bruce Willis play so smarmy, and it is so, like, my first thought when we get introduced to Bruce Willis is like, oh, Bruce Willis created Ari Gold. Jeremy Piven just watched a couple episodes of Moonlighting and then added in some curse words, and that's how and made his character racist, and like, okay, that's how we're Max, doing Ari Gold.
What do you think about Bruce as David?
I think seeing David Addison on screen for the first time, it's so clear that this is an actor who is just putting every bit of himself into making this role work. It's
right.
It's like you're watching someone who has absolutely nothing to lose give everything to this role. And it's like, I don't know how much of that is just Bruce Willis's personality in his early 30s. I don't know how much of this is acting versus just cool guy Bruce, but it's a tour de force, and so much of this feels like this coming out party for this newly anointed star. I think that's all I could think is like, you know what he does with the next 3 years after the show, having nothing to his name prior to this. And you're like, oh, this guy's going to go absolutely like supernova immediately. I think this trash can basketball sequence is so funny. I love the payoff of the trash can falling onto his receptionist's head and telling her she looks a little pale today. That made it all worth it for me. But he's just, we let the Bruce loose, and it's so entertaining.
and some exposition so people can follow along here too, is that the entire premise behind this detective agency, you know, whether he's good at his job or not, we haven't learned yet. But it is designed as a loss leader basically for this woman's taxes. Of just like, no, this entire company's mission is to not make money so you can write off losses on your taxes. And you know, it doesn't mean that he's bad at what he does. In fact, we'll probably learn if he is or not. But yeah, I mean, it's that's what gives him this like shit-eating grin attitude.
Yeah, and I mean, the interaction between Cybill Shepherd and Bruce Willis in the beginning, and her informing him of like, hey, the business is being shut down. It's such a interesting like first meeting of characters, especially given the way that Bruce Willis responds, you know, and the cold bitch line that was said in there, I was even like, oh God, that's a lot even for the 80s.
I didn't know how they could say it on TV back then.
It's a TV movie. That's what I could say.
It's still on one of 3 channels that they had.
It's a movie, so they could.
Oh my God!
But I think that the part that I found so interesting was like, we set this tone. We have this very explosive type of scene that happens right after. And then we're immediately dropped into talking about transitions, going from that scene to the lecture from the plastic surgeon, who only went by the name of Dr. Spellner, is one of the most wild transitions we've seen in a while. But also, I love that actor and the dryness with which he approached that entire thing. But Cybill just being silent, that entire scene was just perfect to me. There's nothing that I love more than just being like, let a boring character be boring as comedy.
Yeah, they almost kind of didn't lead up to anything with the date aspect of it too. And it the entire pilot, you're feeling like, oh, what's happening? And then you kind of learn contextually afterwards, but also there's no like, you know, it's kind of throwing out the rules of, except for the chase leading to when they run into the perpetrators. There is kind of an abandonment of if there's this, then there's that rule of screenwriting, which is like, I don't know, for me felt weird. It felt very like it's like God, what the hell is the phrase? It's or not the phrase. It's like it's weird for the sake of weird, and like there's kind of not a reason to go down that road except for that.
I think everything in Moonlighting is just pieces that have to find a way to get David and Maddie back together. So a lot of these scenes, you know, this plastic surgeon is really a throwaway character, but it's just an excuse to put David and Maddie in a new place and explore 100%. How they interact in public. We've seen them in private. How do they interact with each other in public? And we are talking about a TV hour, but we're effectively talking about the first half of a story. We're talking about really like the first 3 acts, more or less. And so we do have to bear in mind that a lot of it's going to feel like exposition. A lot of it's going to be just sort of thrown at us. But Moonlighting, even if we take this TV hour as the full pilot, it's not necessarily about a plot or a B plot. It is about building a relationship. And what we're selling the audience is that concept of David and Maddie. And if you want to tune in to see how these two interact with each other in a variety of places, then this is the show for you.
Did you guys also get a little tired of the cat and mouse, like leave me alone, I won't, leave me alone, no, leave me alone, no thing?
I could have watched that tete-a-tete all night.
Oh, yeah, okay, wow.
I love the chemistry between these two. I can see why they put them together. So initially, Rich, like that, the office scene, I was sort of like, I understand, but I don't fully buy in. That dinner scene where they were just like, Bruce, just go, just like do whatever the fuck you want in this scene, and seeing the Maddie character have to be across the table from someone who she truly just has disgust for, and like really just like makes their skin crawl as like, I love this, seeing the discomfort, because there's going to be something about this that we're going to continue to fall in love with more and more every time we see them together. We do quickly go away from this restaurant, though, in one of the most interesting, what I can only call chase scenes that I was not fully prepared for, but had me fully drawn to the screen in this, because the gentleman just known as Blonde Mohawk, that is what the the character is called.
It's like Tuxedo Mask
IMDb.
and Sailor Moon.
Done nothing. This character is only what I could call paranoid, but the paranoia, the way it's written and the way it's filmed, I almost felt a sense of paranoia when we meet this man that I only have called as the man with glasses,
right?
Who is chasing him throughout Los Angeles. And then we get this elevator chase scene that I was not prepared for. If you were to tell me before watching this pilot that watching two people in glass elevators going up multiple stairs would terrify me,
right,
and would have me ready for that jump scare, I would have told you you're full of shit. But I loved how this was filmed.
I don't think he was famous yet, but this is a role for Kevin Spacey that I could not have possibly this is the most Kevin Spacey role. And if only Scandal noted, I'm adopting Scandal noted. I really like it. Scandal aside, this is a role for Kevin Spacey. And there is so much of it's just so sinister. It's so dead behind the eyes. It's so you want to know who they are, but my God, did they make this this chase scene is so goddamn long. And this blonde Mohawk guy has made so many bad decisions, and within the chase itself, and essentially traps himself in an elevator a glass elevator going up side by side with the Kevin Spacey character.
Okay, I was gonna say I was making sure that we didn't think if that was Kevin Spacey.
No, it is certainly not.
Okay.
But this is made for Kevin Spacey, and I don't think he was a prominent actor in '85. Usual Suspects came out in '95, but it is. I cannot picture a more of a role for him,
because I thought you were just watching it with dad vision. We were that's Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, Kevin. Hey, I don't need my glasses. That's Kevin Spacey.
The character's name is actually Simon, and he's played by Dennis Lipscomb.
Right.
For us all,
sort
of be like,
Dennis should have got the Kevin Spacey. Should have got the Kevin Spacey career arc, and we're all worse off for Dennis not having it.
Max, what do you think about this Simon character in this chase scene that we get?
On one hand, I'm bothered that I have no sense of what the A plot is. At some point, I kind of want to know what we're building towards. You can only keep showing this nice 80s watch before I eventually just want to be what? What's with the watch?
Truly.
Someone just tell me what's with the watch. However,
and you don't find out within the full 43 minutes that we actually watched. You don't find out.
On the other hand, I do appreciate introducing that the guy that we first meet, who we think is the bad, because that's how these procedurals work. You meet your bad in the cold open.
Right.
It's not actually him. There's someone who's badder than the bad. And we meet that person in Act 3, and we know they're going to play a major arc in the back half of the show. I could get behind it, but it is a thing where this is such a showcase for Cybill Shepherd and Bruce Willis. It's these two people who are so hungry to sell you this thing that it kind of overtakes anything else that we usually discuss in pilots. So I don't know. I want to know more, but I'm also oh God, someone explain the fucking watch to me already.
I know I think this is some of the least exposition we've had in a pilot that we've watched. And also the way that they, to go all the way back to the very beginning, the way that they set up the title card is just Bruce Willis's name, Cybill Shepherd's name, Moonlighting, and then you're dropped into the episode. It is
if you
literally
do continue
nothing.
To watch this, there is a full theme credits. There is a theme song sung by Al Jarreau, and it actually became a Billboard hit.
That's fucking sick.
So after I have bad news, everyone. Blonde Mohawk guy dies, or blonde Mohawk is dead.
Yeah.
He got
How
stabbed.
did he get stabbed in the back?
Well, we have to assume Simon did it, but we don't know how.
Yeah, we don't know how. He wasn't present, and
just let there be mystery, Rich. God.
Yeah, sometimes we don't want answers. We really only get 2 more scenes, but I want to talk a little bit about the police station and what we see there, because I think this is another instance where we get to see Bruce Willis just shine and be Bruce Willis.
I have an all caps note about this specific scene. Why was a witness being interrogated? It's not that hard. Like, they had no reason explained why he was there. Nor did they have a reason why Cybill Shepherd's character was taken in for questioning for a thing that they just witnessed.
Because we have to fill 92 minutes, Rich.
Fuck, yes. Why? Why? And, like, why couldn't this just be a regular TV hour? It has to be a TV 2 hours?
But, like, there's parts of this scene that I love. I love the idea
it's a great scene. There's no reason for it. Make up a reason.
Rich,
give me the reason.
We did not have all of the episodes of Law and Order SVU to teach us how interrogations go and who gets interrogated versus who does not get interrogated.
Cardi B, what was the reason?
This police scene, though, is one of the greatest guys being dudes moments ever filmed for primetime TV.
Yeah, 100%.
Everything that Bruce Willis does, everything that David Addison does in this scene is just to sell him to guys in 1985.
God, the white male confidence in this movie. White 1980s white male confidence in this movie.
From him putting on shades not too dissimilar to these in the police interrogation room, to him using his one phone call to order pizza and offering to get it for the staff at the precinct, to him walking out with the cops arm in arm, offering to give them some of his vital records so they can burn copies. It is some of the greatest dudes rock moments in the history of primetime television.
I'm going to ask this question, and I want you guys to genuinely think about this. How many people saw this TV movie and decided, you know what I'm going to do if I go to the police station?
I'm going to order a pizza.
I'm going to order a pizza. And I have to think it's a number greater than 0.
Yeah.
But I also love the idea of Bruce Willis's character told us exactly what he wanted to do at the dinner of like, hey, we're going to make the detective agency successful. You're a big Hollywood star. So we just need one case and we need people to know that you're behind the case. Mm-hmm. And he called the press and he got this moment, and just Bruce Willis whistling in the background while Cybill Shepherd's character was just like, what the fuck is going on? A+. It's funny because this character, this detective, like this smarminess, it almost reminds me a lot of how Michael Keaton ended up doing Beetlejuice years after, mm-hmm. right? Where it's this chaotic character who does have some form of authority and just makes everyone's life like just a little bit worse, but the audience's life a little bit better in the process.
If they do follow one rule in this pilot period, it's that you are learning quickly that Bruce Willis is very good at his job, whatever that may be. Whatever he does, he knows how to manipulate the situation. He knows how to he made the doctor go chase like a fake nose job emergency in Pasadena. Yeah. He made the press show up. He made he was probably the reason that they even got hauled into the police station in the first place. It is like he's creating these situations.
And it's the same thing as crashing the dinner. What we're establishing here is we just want to put this person into situations and see what happens around them. Mm-hmm. Like, you want them to be the linchpin. And I think that they've created such a good two-hander here and such a strong linchpin for creating situations around them with David and Maddie. I think it's so effective in that.
Yeah.
So we have one last scene, and Cybill Shepherd gets this gigantic monologue to Bruce Willis's character, to David, talking about how she doesn't really ever want to see him again. Mm-hmm. She's done. She's not doing this investigation. And we end going to black, but with a knife in Maddie's back. Not fully in, just, the point touching. So you know that the knife is there.
It's a knife or a gun? There's a gun in Bruce Willis's back.
And a knife to her throat.
Yeah, and Bruce Willis saying, I'd leave, but there's a gun in my back right now. I'm curious, as far as an ending, if we were to imagine this as the syndicated version of this pilot, Did it have your attention? Did you say, oh shit?
Did the Moonlighting writers invent the "he's right behind me now, isn't he" moment?
Max, I'm curious from you.
There's sexy keyboards, a powerful monologue from a strong woman, and then a threat of danger. Yes, I'm absolutely in for episode 2.
Oh my gosh. And Rich, what about yourself?
Yeah, I'm going in for. Should we make this a 2-part episode?
No.
All right. There you have it, folks.
Recap Moonlighting?
There you have it, folks.
Is this a Moonlighting podcast now? No. Well, that is our pilot episode.
Technically, that would be us moonlighting if we take if we have a second podcast from our podcast.
Oh my gosh! But let's talk about things that we loved about this pilot. Maybe things that you think deserve a little bit more shine. Max, I'm curious. Any things that you love that you want to spread more shine on?
David Addison one-liner specifically. Grown men cry, women throw underwear. Company car. My company car, the Porsche, both of them.
Yeah.
I need you to leave. You need me to live. Let's talk about Yale. Let's talk about Princeton.
Oh.
Great schools.
I wrote that down in mine too.
He's not my friend. He was lonely and I was on shore leave. All of these David Addison one-liners are just demolished by Bruce Willis. He knocks all of them out of the park. It's a tour de force. It's a coming out party. And it's so fun watching someone that we grew up with as already being an A-list movie star our entire lives and just seeing him burst out of the gate like almost fully formed. It's so exciting to go back and watch.
I actually saw a lot of what they were thinking and having Bill Murray be the lead of this too.
Yeah,
in
100%.
in those lines for sure. 100% these are written for Bill Murray, but thank God Bruce Willis like absolutely nails them. It is but yeah, that's basically those are the things I liked as well. I wrote those down.
Yeah, I mean, there are moments when this pilot decides it wants to be an action movie, and like out of context of this being like, oh, this was a long-running TV show. There were some comedy elements behind it. I really like how this was filmed for those action scenes. I know they're very out of place for the TV movie that it is, but at the same time, there are moments where you're like, ooh, this is really fun. Like even just the single moment where we see Bruce Willis in a Porsche in a parking lot that maybe I own part of. I'm thinking like, holy shit, like this is really, really fun. Let's talk about wait a minute moments, things that maybe caused you pause. I'm going to start off. There's this random moment where we are in a birthday party for a child.
Yeah.
And we meet a character named Heinz. And Heinz refuses cake to go. Are you fucking kidding me? You take a slice of cake with you from that birthday party. You take that slice of cake. You're probably gonna someone has a paper plate, I assume, for you to do it, but don't just go.
Jeff's got character motivation issues for this episode.
That is the rudest thing in the world. And Heinz looks like he enjoys a piece of cake. That's really, really, if you're trying not to be too suspicious, take the slice of cake and eat it in your car like a man. All right, Rich, what about yourself?
Okay, so the chase scenes of this pilot, while probably necessary for the pilot, they're just so long. They're so long. There's so many wrong turns and moments of what they wanted was bated breath moments and stuff like that. And I'm like, for fuck's sake, did you guys even have an editor for this? It is crazy how long these chase scenes are.
It's the real time thing where you watch someone doing something in real time.
There are just certain moments that felt like the Austin Powers backing up the truck thing.
Yes.
Trying to turn the truck around kind of thing. And I'm like, my God, why didn't they edit this more? It is they really suck the energy out of it.
Max, what about yourself?
And no, I haven't, Eddie. Wait a minute, a moment, Jeff. Everything's a spicy meatball. Everything's a mamma mia.
Oh my God. Well, thank you so much for your answers, gentlemen. We already went through our in-flight questions, so let's just talk a little bit about the legacy and the history of this show. Yeah. This show had 5 seasons and 67 episodes total. Max,
how many lawsuits from the Italian Cultural Committee?
Unfortunately, I did not get that information, but Max actually talked a little bit about the 5th season. So the 5th season of this show was the final season of this show, but the big reason why was super interesting. It came out right after Die Hard was a smash hit, and Bruce Willis was being pulled by everyone to go and do more movies than doing TV in the grueling schedule that was. And Cybill Shepherd just had twins and decided she wanted to step away from being in TV as
she
well.
Did the movie Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito.
Yep. You forgot that she was in that movie as well. So they decided to do one final season, and Max got a small preview of it, but they sort of introduced the concept of it with some ABC executives actually being acted and portrayed in the show. It's super interesting. This show, as far as syndication goes, was more of a hit internationally from a syndication perspective than it was in the US. It only started really getting a lot of draw from the US when the DVDs came out for the show.
How popular was syndication in general at this time in like 1990 on TV? I don't.
Not really a big thing. Okay. So you're thinking more of like the 2000s when like VHSs and DVDs were starting to become more popular, and the idea of rewatching something, specifically on Lifetime and Bravo, was where I was seeing it syndicated. But this show had a life in the UK, in Canada, New Zealand, Australia, like lots of different countries had this show going on. Yes, there are DVDs and VHSs of every season of this show available to you. But let's talk about awards. 60 nominations and 17 wins. That includes 40 Emmy nominations for this show, and 6 wins, as well as 10 Golden Globe Award nominations and 3 wins. So yeah, this show was definitely beloved. One of the interesting parts, it seems like one of those shows where even though it was really well liked, because of the expenses associated with it, every season was sort of like, are we going to renew? Like it was a question mark.
Well, because it's so fucking expensive. I see why.
Yeah, exactly. So like
1.6 an episode. That's like it for 1985 numbers. That's like what 4 or 5 times the cost of like a Game of Thrones episode.
It's about like the same actually. The Game of Thrones episode,
and there's not even dragons in it.
I know.
Or are there? What's season 5 like?
There's a lack of dragons.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back and change my weight a minute.
Wait a minute, this isn't season 1.
But yeah, that is the history of the show. Rich, it is time for your game of the week.
Well, for the game of the week, what else could we talk about but stars who became famous on TV before they broke into to movies? So first question, we have Chris Hemsworth, before he became the Marvel darling, broke into acting the same way many people with great hair and jawlines do: soap operas. Hemsworth was a standout on an Australian soap, or as they call them there, a soap opera.
Oh my god.
He worked on that in the mirror for hours this morning.
and nailed it, stuck the landing. It was called Home and Away. This show, I believe, is still actually on the air. They're on their like 37th or 38th season.
Margot Robbie was also in it.
That's right. What was not a plot line on Home and Away?
Ooh.
Yeah. This is not going to be easy. A character was supposedly eaten by a crocodile, only to show up the next season explaining he had killed it and and showed up in an outfit of the crocodile's skin. B.
That's a Crocodile Dundee episode. I don't know what you're talking about.
B. The Crocodile Dundee soap opera that became the movie. B. A character washes up on the beach speaking only Pig Latin. C. A character has his body inhabited by an indigenous man's spirit and has to the actor basically acts like an indigenous man. D. A character is jumped by a pack of 10-year-olds.
I'm sure they played option C with very delicate gloves and great care and consideration.
Boy, I was about to say.
I'm sure they did.
We're all crossing our fingers that one of these is not real.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you guys got? A through D?
I'm going to say that D. D is the answer.
Jump by a pack of 10-year-olds?
Yeah.
And I'm going to say
just Rich's experience on Sundays when he's playing baseball.
And I'm going to say
do you think I'm playing Little League? Oh my god. Oh my god. That's so funny. Oh my god. I'm like I just say I'm from Puerto Rico and I have a document. I have a birth certificate that says I was born in 2009.
Yeah, Rich is playing second base and left center field. I'm gonna say it's B, the pig Latin
His
plot.
batting average is still below 200, so don't worry.
Oh shit. Okay. Both of you are wrong. Fuck you. The one that I made up was the eaten by a crocodile, only to show up in an outfit made of its skin. All right.
Rich, I got a job for you, and it's on this show.
Yeah. So this one is so the pig Latin was real. The inhabited by an indigenous man's spirit was real. Boy, you could not pay me to watch that one. And then jump by a pack of 10-year-olds was also real. Okay. Home and Away writing team, if you're listening to this, please hire me. Obviously Robin Williams started off his career in the same fashion, being offered the role of the alien Mork from the planet Mork, which just happens to land on the set of Happy Days. Mork's character invades because he wanted to bring back a specimen for his planet. Happy Days writing team, also hire me because that's garbage. He wanted to bring back a specimen for his planet. Ron Howard's character, Richie. Instead of himself, Richie asks if he wanted to bring back the president or Hank Aaron instead. Who was the president when this episode came out? Lyndon Johnson, Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, or Jimmy Carter?
Happy Days. I'm going to say this is Jerry Ford.
Jeff?
I think it was 1980, right? Like around then. So
it is before 1980, because otherwise Reagan would have been an answer.
Yeah. Rich, do you mind going through the
answers these again? These are all in chronological order. So Lyndon Johnson, Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter.
Let's go with Carter. Why not? I'm bad at American history.
It was Jimmy Carter. It was 1978.
Oh, fuck yeah. Hail Mary.
All right. Which of these stars was not a core member of the original Electric Company TV show? A. Richard Pryor. B. Morgan Freeman. C. Rita Moreno. D. Mel Brooks. I have never watched these.
All right, who grew up in Pittsburgh? I'm going to say Rita Moreno.
I was going to say Rita Moreno too.
Morgan Freeman, Rita Moreno, and Mel Brooks are all in the core cast of the Electric Company. Morgan Freeman actually is on their IMDb page. He's listed as one of the people with the most episodes on the show.
Oh wow!
Had no idea that's where he was famous from. Richard Pryor I added into the mix.
Fun.
Yeah.
Well, Rich, thank you so much for that game of the week.
Yeah, this was a fun research.
Gentlemen, I have two questions for you. The first is, we had another 47 minutes of this TV movie that we potentially could have watched.
Yeah.
Are you going to exit your Hulu or Disney Plus account and just go on with your day? Or are you going to watch the second half of this?
I'm gonna delete my Hulu.
And then the second question that I have for you is, we're seeing more people who we grew up with as movie stars come back to TV, which I find is such an interesting phenomenon, especially network television. Do you think that maybe one of them should start up the City of Angels Detective Agency, soon to be the Blue Moon Detective Agency, and we get a nice little reboot of this show? Max, I'll have you start us off.
Yeah, I mean, I got to see how we get from episode 1 to season 5, episode 1. I definitely want to keep watching more of this show. I think that the chemistry and charisma of the two leads alone is enough to carry this as a pilot, and it makes for entertaining watch. As to your second question, what I knew about Moonlight, just as a TV fan, prior to ever watching this, because my first time seeing it, both episode 1 and season 5, episode 1, is that Moonlight was notorious for doing noir episodes, musical episodes,
Right.
Shakespeare episodes, claymation episodes. They would fourth wall breaks.
Yeah.
And all of these people that I grew up loving and respecting their work, like Paul Sibbs, Bill Lawrence, Dan Harmon, they all cite Moonlighting as being this really influential comedy to them. And I think seeing the way that these people are still working on TV, it does give me hope that a show like this could exist in that world. We are seeing it. I think the closest thing we have to Moonlighting on TV was the After Party at Apple, where every single episode in this mystery would be a different genre. It got canceled after 2 seasons, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Community played at this formatting. Scrubs played at this formatting.
Yeah.
There are a lot of shows that play with this formatting. And I absolutely think that there is an opportunity for a major star to take up the mantle of a, Detective David Addison or whatever character we want to call it now, and bring us back to City of Angels investigations. And a show like this could certainly thrive under the stewardship of someone who came up appreciating it,
Definitely.
taking it in a new direction for the 21st
100%.
century.
Rich, what about yourself?
I would certainly watch the rest of La La Land. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm being told we watched Moonlighting. So this is, I definitely would watch the rest of this pilot, despite me knowing that if I had to guess, they could have finished the rest of this pilot in 20 minutes airtime instead of 50 more minutes. That said, I also really do think I completely agree with Max in that there should be more shows that just say fuck it to the premise of TV shows. I need more people to take big swings. I want and big swings means not necessarily just copying what Moonlighting did. This is if they do a claymation episode, it's it's like a big swing, but it's also that's what Moonlighting did, and that's and it was brave in the late 80s. I think people need to take more big swings on to break out of what the format is. So I'm going to keep watching. I think people should take more pages from this show and not necessarily take the pages from this show and try new shit. Try it out. Break the format, break the fourth wall. If you for things, I love It's Gary Shandling's show. I think that's one of the most unique comedies that's been out in the last 40 years. I want to see more of that. How about you, Geoff?
Yeah, I mean, as far as watching more of this TV movie, I started watching the second part of this immediately.
Did you?
I wasn't like, oh, I'm done. I was like, okay.
You watched the whole thing?
Keep on. Yeah,
okay.
I watched the whole thing, and I implore you both to enjoy the second half of this. As far as watching more Moonlighting, I would love to have something different as far as, the traditional what's the crime of the week show. What is the new approach we can have? We have so many different versions. There's now this sudden wave of ooh, it's a crime in a small town, and everyone in the town sort of thing. What if we it's just sure, cool, that's great, but what if we just had fun? And not every crime show needs to be we all talked so glowingly about Brooklyn Nine-Nine and when we did that pilot, and there's something about this that gives me that vibe of cool, what if we did Brooklyn Nine-Nine 5% more serious, and
interesting,
but we played around with the formatting, we played around with the filming styles, we just had fun, and instead of saying will that work, we said let's try it and do it and see if it happens. You know what, if you told me that Dan Harmon wanted to reboot Moonlighting right now, I'd be like, fuck yeah. If Bill Lawrence was like, you know what, I love this show, give me a chance to reboot it, Bill, sign me on to like, I'll give you the $10 I have to be a producer on that shit. Like, let's fucking go.
Bill, I've got 11. Hit me up.
Bill,
he tried, and none of us watched Whiskey Cavalier. Bill Lawrence tried to do an 80s detective
I watched
show.
Whiskey Cavalier, and we're gonna do that on this podcast. Bill, come on the pod. I want to talk about Whiskey Cavalier and why there isn't a season 2.
Please.
So yeah, I hope that I think we genuinely talk about the rebooting of shows and we're like, please don't make something new. I think this is one of those rare ones where I'm like, can we do this and not make it a bastardization of what it was, but honor it and give it new life? Because I think there are versions of that are starting to pop up that everyone has a real appetite for. And it'd be a really nice thing to do as well for the legacy of this show. Well, gentlemen, that is our podcast and that is our flight. But before we go, let's make sure to let the audience know where they can find more of you. Max, where can folks find you?
You can find me on all the platforms on social media at Maxwell Sig.
Oh man, we're gonna lose.
And
Chef
you can
Boyardee.
leave Max's complaints about Max's Italian-American thoughts and relations on his Instagram and his.
Yeah, if anyone wants to boost our engagement by leaving us hate mail, we're totally cool with that too. Just so you know.
Yeah. Rich, what about yourself?
You can find me shaving my head into a mohawk and running from strangers. And you can also find me on Instagram at Damn That's Rich. Max, did you give him our... I missed it. Did you give us our sketch handle?
No, I did not.
If you want to look for more comedy and that accent from Rich and Max, you can find it at Dagwagon Comedy on TikTok as well as Instagram. If you're looking for me, you can probably find me running in a set of jeans in your local park. But if you're looking for me on
He's cutting weight.
If you're looking for me on social media, it makes me more aerodynamic, Rich. Didn't you know? You can find me on social media at Run Jeff Run. You can find the TV Pilot's License anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can also find us on most social media channels if you look hard enough. But you can also see our smiling faces on YouTube at TV Pilot's License. If you have a question about the show or for our next episode, you can submit your in-flight questions at tvpilotslicense.com or give us a call and leave us a voicemail at 213-290-1713. Make sure to watch out for our Instagram for a sneak preview of some of our upcoming episodes. But with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again soon. And until then,
they're not
bouncy,
gonna let
bouncy.